For 3,000 years, the galaxy knew nothing but peace. The great empires that once fought over stars had vanished into dust. The old war machines now rested in museums, covered in layers of history and forgotten memories. Trade moved freely, cultures mixed without fear, and the Galactic Council ruled with calm voices and soft hands. Children learned about war like it was a story from another world, something unreal, something impossible in their time. Entire generations grew up never hearing an explosion or seeing a soldier in armor. The galaxy had become a garden, trimmed and quiet. But peace, though beautiful, had made everyone weak. The Council, proud of their achievements, failed to see the danger that comes when strength is replaced by comfort and when memory fades into myth. It happened without warning. On the edge of known space, in the forgotten ruins of a star system long erased from maps, a signal pulsed. Then, one by one, the Varnak warships appeared, black, silent, and full of fury. They had not been part of this peace. They had not softened or forgotten. They had waited, hidden in the dark places beyond the galactic charts, growing, building, watching. Their return was not announced with words. It came as a sudden invasion. 5 planets burned in 2 days. The Varnak sent a message across the stars. We have returned. Bow or be broken. No warning, no negotiation. The Galactic Council froze in fear. Their fleets were old and slow, their strategies buried in books. Leaders panicked, some argued, others begged. But no one knew what to do. The Varnak were unlike anything this peaceful galaxy had seen in thousands of years. Their weapons were sharp, their minds sharper, and their hatred deep. Citizens screamed for protection, but the Council had no answer. Their peace had not prepared them for war. In the middle of this rising chaos, a quiet voice spoke inside the Council chamber. What about the humans? The room fell silent. The word itself sounded like a forgotten spell. Humans, once the most feared warriors in the galaxy, had disappeared from public life after the Great Galactic War. They had chosen isolation, cutting off contact, vanishing into the shadow of their blue world. No one had seen a human in centuries. Their technology was hidden, their weapons sealed, their reasons unknown. The Council hesitated. Were humans even alive? Would they respond? And if they did, what would they bring? With no other hope, they sent a signal, a desperate, humble request to Earth. The Council expected silence, or maybe a polite refusal. Instead, they received a short, strange reply. Acknowledged. That was it. No promises, no details, just a single word. Days passed. Worlds fell. The Varnak marched forward like a wave of fire. Then, one ship appeared near Council space, not large or shining. Just a plain, gray craft, old in design but flawless in its flight. It moved like it belonged to no one and feared nothing. The Council watched with confusion as it landed. A ramp lowered. One figure stepped out. He wore no armor, no cape, no bright symbols, just a dark coat and calm eyes. His name was Commander Reyes. The Council expected a fleet. Instead, they got a man. Where is your army? One council member asked, struggling to hide his frustration. Reyes looked at them and smiled, not with pride, not with arrogance, but with something else. Calm certainty. You called for humans, he said softly. One is enough. The room went quiet. Some thought it was a joke. Others felt something colder, a sense that the man was not joking at all. The Council, still unsure, tried to explain the danger. They showed him reports of the Varnak's destruction, their size, their speed, their power. But Reyes only nodded, listening without fear. When asked what Earth had been doing all these years, he simply replied, watching, preparing, waiting. Word of his arrival spread fast. Some mocked it. Others grew curious. But in the shadows, a few remembered stories. Old, half-forgotten stories of human warriors who once walked through fire and made monsters retreat. Stories of battles where humanity stood alone and never fell. The galaxy had changed, but humans had not. They had gone silent, yes, but silence does not mean surrender. Sometimes it means sharpening the blade. As the Varnak advanced again, the Council begged Earth to send more forces, but Earth remained quiet. Only Reyes stood ready. He did not build walls. He built traps. He did not hold meetings. He studied the enemy. He did not panic. He planned, and while the galaxy cried for help, he moved like a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. One night, under the cold light of distant stars, Reyes stood alone on a hill overlooking a colony that would soon face the Varnak. Behind him, no army waited. In his hand, he held a single device. As the stars flickered and the wind whispered across the rocks, he smiled, not out of joy, not out of madness, but because he understood something the galaxy had forgotten. Peace may keep people alive, but war teaches them how to survive. And the humans, those strange, quiet beings from the blue planet, had survived everything. They did not forget war. They became it. And now, as the silence shattered and the fire returned, one thing became clear to the galaxy. Humanity was back. The galaxy had always whispered the name of humans with a mix of awe and fear, but over the centuries, those whispers had faded. Now, as panic spread across the stars and the Varnak continued their ruthless advance, the Council and its people realized just how much they had forgotten. Once, humans had stood as fierce warriors, unmatched in strategy and terrifying in combat. But after the last great war, they had disappeared into silence. Their world, Earth, went dark, not in destruction, but in secrecy. No one was allowed to land. No messages were answered, and all human colonies went quiet. Some said they had destroyed themselves. Others believed they had evolved into something else. But the truth was stranger than fiction. They had simply chosen to vanish, to pull back from a galaxy that no longer wanted war. While others celebrated peace, humans trained. While others dismantled their weapons, humans hid theirs beneath the soil. They watched the stars with quiet eyes, studying every shift in politics, every new technology, every race that rose and fell. The galaxy believed Earth was resting. Earth was actually preparing. Commander Reyes was the first glimpse of what humanity had become. He didn't act like a diplomat, didn't speak in long speeches, and never showed fear. He carried himself like a man who had seen the worst of the universe and was no longer impressed by it. He moved alone, yet he walked like he had the weight of 1,000 warriors behind him. The Council tried to understand him. They offered him protection, advisors, even maps of Varnak activity, but he declined it all. He had already mapped the enemy's movements days ago. He had already placed sensors in the stars before the Council even sent their first alert. Reyes wasn't responding to a crisis. He had expected it, and when they asked him what Earth was going to do now, he answered with a strange calm. "We're already here." The words confused many until new reports began to arrive from scattered planets. On colonies thought abandoned, strange machines activated. Entire defense systems came online without warning. Ships shaped like nothing in modern use began to rise from hidden bunkers deep beneath desert moons. Across remote spaceports, humans appeared, not in massive armies, but in small, precise teams. They said nothing. They gave no warnings. They simply went to work. An old mining world, once believed useless, suddenly shot down an entire Varnak scout fleet with orbital beams no one had ever seen before. A planet of farmers turned out to be a human training ground, where civilians turned into soldiers within hours, using weapons that didn't exist on any Council registry. The galaxy had forgotten humans, but humans had not forgotten the galaxy. They had lived in the shadows for so long, people thought they were extinct. But in truth, they had become something deeper, the galaxy's insurance policy. When the Varnak first encountered human resistance, They were confused. Their scans picked up no armies, no energy spikes, no large fleets. Yet their ships vanished one by one. Their generals received no signals. Their weapons failed in empty space. They sent spies who never returned. Then they found something terrifying. Human satellites disguised as space debris, floating silently for years, now awake and feeding live data to hidden bases across entire sectors. The Varnak began to understand that they were not fighting a people. They were fighting a network, a strategy, a mind that had been building for centuries. Humans didn't match their numbers, but they didn't need to. Every human strike was precise, every attack unexpected, and every retreat part of a larger plan. Back on Council Prime, many still couldn't believe it. Reyes, still alone in their halls, was no longer just a visitor. He had become a symbol of awakening, a ghost of a warrior race returning to life. The Council demanded answers. How many humans were out there? Where were their fleets hidden? What did they want in return? But Reyes only offered a small, knowing smile. "We are not here to lead," he said. "We are here because you weren't ready." His words carried more weight than threats. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. And in that disappointment was the quiet warning that humans had always prepared, not for power, but for the moment when no one else would stand. In a hidden war room far from the public eye, Reyes met with other human commanders, each one arriving in silence, stepping out of cloaked ships, wearing old badges from a forgotten military. Their faces were calm, their plans already drawn. They spoke in short sentences, their strategies focused not on defense, but on shaping the battlefield itself. They didn't just want to push the Varnak back. They'd wanted to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Across the galaxy, human agents activated old outposts, awakened dormant AIs, and reconnected a system of hidden communication nodes that had been silent for over 2,000 years. It wasn't just a return. It was a full reawakening. Humanity had always been watching, like ghosts in the walls. Now, they were stepping out of the dark. And still, no one truly knew how far their reach went. A council scout team, fleeing from a Varnak patrol, crash-landed on a remote moon and expected death. But instead, they were found by a strange group, humans who had been living there all along, farming on the surface, but with anti-air defenses hidden beneath their fields. They offered food, repairs, and a quiet warning. The old peace is gone. Stay alert. When asked why they had never revealed themselves, the humans replied simply, "Because you didn't need us then. Now you do." That moment repeated across dozens of star systems. Wherever fear spread, humans appeared, not to rule, not to demand, but to remind the galaxy what it had forgotten. That behind every peaceful age, there must always be someone willing to fight for it. And humanity, strange and unpredictable, had chosen that role long ago. The Varnak, once arrogant in their return, began to doubt their vision. They had returned to conquer a soft galaxy. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping force that had not grown weaker, but smarter. Every battle now came with confusion. Why did the terrain change without warning? How were their comms jammed so easily? How did humans strike without being seen? And the answer was always the same, because they never stopped preparing. They never stopped learning. And now, the forgotten warriors of Earth were back, not with speeches or banners, but with quiet actions, precise strikes, and a message that echoed louder than any war cry. We remember everything. The galaxy held its breath. The return of humans was no longer a rumor or a mystery. It was a fact. Across countless systems, their silent operations, sudden counterattacks, and hidden technology had thrown the invading Varnak forces into chaos. But this was only the beginning. As human resistance grew more visible, the galaxy's ruling powers demanded proof of true strength. Whispers rose in council chambers. Could the humans really match the full might of the Varnak Empire? Could a race forgotten for centuries still hold power strong enough to shift the balance of galactic war? These questions found their answer when the Varnak announced a challenge, a direct strike against a key strategic world, one guarded by a mixture of Council defense systems and human specialists. The world, Jaraxxus, had once been a peaceful trading hub, now converted into a battleground for survival. Varnak war fleets moved in, massive and overwhelming, covering the sky like a mechanical storm. Their generals believed that crushing Jaraxxus would break morale and prove that the human return was nothing more than a short-lived myth. But the humans didn't retreat. They didn't negotiate. Instead, they waited, calm and unreadable. Commander Reyes watched from the surface, arms crossed behind his back, as Varnak warships formed a deadly net above the atmosphere. He gave no orders to flee, no messages of surrender, only a quiet command into a private channel: begin the test. And so it began. As the first Varnak missiles launched, something unexpected happened. The sky, filled with streaks of fire and destruction, suddenly changed. The missiles vanished, not exploded, not intercepted, but simply disappeared. Varnak sensors failed to explain it. Within seconds, cloaked defense fields activated, absorbing energy and redirecting it in strange patterns. Then came the real shock. Ancient satellites around Jaraxxus began transmitting strange signals. Those signals triggered dormant towers buried deep under the ground, awakening machines not seen in centuries. These weren't ordinary defenses. These were human-designed counter-warfare systems that adapted in real time, learning enemy patterns, rewriting strategies mid-battle, and turning the attacker's own weapons against them. Varnak ships began exploding from within, confused by false data, their systems infected by AI viruses that had been hidden inside the very space they moved through. It was not brute force that humans used. It was precision, timing, and complete psychological dominance. Down below, on the surface, the ground shook not from bombs, but from the activation of mobile war platforms, ancient walkers built in secrecy, powered by zero-point energy, and controlled by human pilots linked directly through neural interfaces. The walkers moved like living creatures, fast and silent, impossible to track. They struck with surgical force, taking out entire drop zones before the enemy even landed. What frightened the Varnak more was not just the power, but the control. Humans didn't destroy for the sake of destruction. They left escape routes open. They allowed injured enemies to retreat. They didn't scream victory. They simply moved to the next target. It was a cold, calculated message. This is only a fraction of what we can do. Elsewhere in space, Council fleets watched from a distance. They had expected resistance, but not this level of control. What they saw shook their confidence in everything they thought they knew. Human pilots flew ships that defied physics, using gravity fields and magnetic distortions to dance through enemy lines. These weren't new ships. They were ancient, repurposed vessels, updated in secret with technologies the Council had never even dreamed of. But perhaps the most shocking moment came when a single human vessel, the Vindicator, emerged from subspace directly in front of the Varnak command carrier. It was a medium-sized ship, nothing impressive in size, but it carried something more dangerous than weapons. It carried a message. The human commander opened a direct channel, spoke one line, and then shut it down. The line was simple: "Now you know what we've been building." A moment later, the Vindicator vanished again, but the Varnak flagship lost all power. No explosion, no beam, just silence. Every system went offline. Every light flickered out. Every crew member sat in darkness, terrified not of what they could see, but of what they couldn't. They didn't know how it happened, or if it would happen again. They had expected battle. What they got was a lesson. The humans had not just returned. They had surpassed what anyone expected. They didn't fight with rage or noise or overwhelming numbers. They fought with perfect knowledge. They made every move count, like a chess player setting up a checkmate 6 moves ahead. Back on Jaraxxus, as the last Varnak retreat signal was received, the world stood still. The council forces cheered. Civilians wept. But the humans didn't celebrate. They simply stood down, powered off their walkers, and returned to their hidden bunkers. Commander Reyes looked up at the stars, knowing the Varnak would return with even more force. But he also knew this battle had been important, not just for the victory, but for the message it sent to the galaxy. Humans were no longer the unpredictable newcomers or the forgotten warriors. They had become the standard of power, the benchmark by which all others would be measured. Their silence had not been weakness. It had been patience. And now, that patience was over. The council called it a miracle, a moment of hope. But Reyes called it something else, a warning. This was just a test, a demonstration. The real war had not even begun. And when it did, the galaxy would finally understand the truth, that peace was not protected by words, but by the readiness of those willing to fight for it. The Varnak had tested humanity. And now, humanity was ready to test the Varnak in return. The battlefield was silent, not because the fight hadn't begun, but because it had ended before it could truly start. All across the galaxy, different species had heard stories of humans, some calling them myths, others dismissing them as primitive creatures lost to time. But deep inside the cold, silent void of Sector 12P, something had happened that made every major power rethink everything they believed about this forgotten race. It started with a Varnak fleet, 30 warships, 2 command carriers, and an elite ground invasion unit, sent to crush what they thought was a small human outpost hidden on an unremarkable planet named Drelis. The Varnak commander, Lord Kareth, was confident. He had wiped out rebellions and crushed colonies with fewer resources. This mission was supposed to be a quick display of dominance, just to remind the galaxy who still controlled the stars. But when the Varnak ships arrived in orbit, their sensors detected something strange. No panic, no evacuation, not even resistance. Just silence. That silence was broken only when a lone human stepped into a clearing near the main settlement. He wasn't armored, not holding a weapon, and wore nothing more than a channel to mock him. But Elias didn't flinch. He just tilted his head slightly and smiled. It wasn't an angry grin or a crazy smirk. It was calm, too calm. The kind of smirk that held secrets behind it. The kind that said, "You've already lost. You just don't know it yet." That single expression, that tiny, unreadable movement of his face, made the Varnak warriors hesitate. Something about it felt wrong. They couldn't explain it, but their instincts screamed at them. Then Elias raised a small handheld device and tapped it once. Instantly, the air around the planet shimmered, not from heat, but from thousands of hidden defense systems revealing themselves all at once. Cloaked satellites, ground cannons, EMP turrets, even orbital mines that had been invisible until activated. The Varnak fleet scrambled, trying to reposition, but it was too late. Within moments, entire systems failed. Missiles lost targeting. Shields dropped. Communication lines were jammed by human AI systems that learned in real time. Ships began crashing into one another in confusion. Meanwhile, down below, Elias didn't move. He just kept that calm smirk on his face, as if everything was going exactly as planned. Varnak ground units deployed in panic, hoping to seize some kind of control, but human squads were already surrounding them. Silent, well-trained, and moving like shadows. Every time the Varnak tried to regroup, they were pushed back, not by overwhelming firepower, but by superior tactics, misdirection, and timing. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. For decades, the galaxy had believed humans were gone or weak. But now they realized the truth. Humans hadn't disappeared. They had prepared. They hadn't forgotten war. They had rewritten it. The smirk on Elias's face wasn't about arrogance. It was about confidence built on knowledge, control, and the understanding that real strength doesn't shout. It waits. That moment, captured on a recording by a fleeing Varnak scout, spread across the stars. It was just a few seconds of footage, showing Elias standing alone in that clearing with a slight smirk as Varnak ships exploded in the sky behind him. But it changed everything. Entire planets began to question their alliances. Some governments tried to contact humans in secret, and others simply panicked, fearing they were next. The Varnak, once proud rulers of the galaxy, now faced something they had never experienced before. Fear born not from brute force, but from precision, planning, and the terrifying calm of a human who knew exactly what he was doing. Back on the Varnak homeworld, the High Command demanded answers. How did a single man stop a full fleet? How did the humans get such advanced systems without being noticed? But the more they searched, the more they found signs that humans had been hiding in plain sight for years, studying, watching, preparing. They hadn't just survived, they had evolved. And now, with that one smirk, Elias Marin had declared to the galaxy that humans were no longer prey. They were the quiet hunters. They were the storm after the silence. The galaxy didn't know when or where they would strike next, but they knew one thing for sure. Whenever they saw a human smile like that again, it would already be too late. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been ruled by the Council of Nine, a powerful alliance of ancient alien empires that decided everything from trade routes to wars, and all other species had to obey them without question. Humanity was never even invited. They were seen as too young, too wild, too emotional, and too dangerous to be part of any important discussion. While the Council ignored Earth, humans slowly spread to nearby systems, building small colonies, experimenting with new technology, and surviving without the help of any other species. Most thought they would destroy themselves eventually, as their history was full of war and conflict. But the Council made a mistake. They underestimated the one thing humans never gave up on: adaptation. And now, after a mysterious disappearance of a Council fleet in the Omega system, everything changed. The Council sent investigators, warships, and diplomats, but they found nothing except one signal repeated in a calm, human voice. This space is under human control. No warning, no explanation, just that. At first, the Council laughed. But when 2 more fleets vanished and 3 planets silently switched their allegiance to Earth, the laughter stopped. Behind every lost battle, behind every shift in power, there was no grand speech or loud explosion, just the quiet rise of a new force that didn't ask for respect. It took it. The moment everything truly changed was when Captain Maravance, a former Earth officer now commanding a small strike fleet, arrived alone at the intergalactic summit. She didn't bring a translator or a guard, just a small device and a datapad. The Council laughed again, asking what message she had brought. But when she activated the device, a full hologram of the Council's secret military plans appeared in front of them, stolen, decoded, and countered without a single human casualty. Silence filled the room. "We know every move you plan to make," she said calmly. "We've let you rule long enough. That time is over." The Council demanded answers, but Mara simply walked out, leaving behind the message that humans would no longer play by their rules. From that moment, systems began to switch sides. Old allies of the Council sent private messages to human commanders, asking for peace, trade, and safety. Even the fearsome Graal Empire, known for crushing rebellions with brutal force, hesitated after one of their strongest warlords was defeated by a single human ship. They said the human vessel moved like it was alive, dodging lasers, cutting through defenses, and disabling systems without firing a single deadly shot. It was as if humans had rewritten the rules of space warfare. Every battle fought with humans ended not with destruction, but with surrender, because no one could keep up with them. They didn't need numbers. They had strategy, silence, and the one thing no other species had: unpredictable thinking. While the rest of the galaxy relied on logic, tradition, and codes, humans thrived in chaos. They didn't need centuries of planning. They needed seconds of instinct. The Council called them unstable, But that instability became their strength. A human commander could lose a ship and win a war in the same breath. They didn't follow the expected patterns, and that made them impossible to stop. Even AI systems built to predict movements failed to track human tactics. It wasn't just technology, it was the human mind, always adapting, always pushing, never giving up. And that's why the human era began not with a bang, but with a shift. Planets that had been loyal to the Council for generations began removing their flags and raising human banners, not out of fear, but out of respect. Humanity had not just survived the galaxy's judgment. They had earned their place. The Council finally met in secret, whispering about surrender. Some wanted to negotiate, others to flee, but all agreed on one thing. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. Every race watched closely now. Every empire listened. The humans, once ignored and dismissed, now stood at the center of everything. Their fleets, though smaller, moved with purpose. Their words, though few, carried weight. And above all, their silence terrified more than any warcry. As the old powers fell, humanity did not celebrate with loud parades or massive invasions. They simply stepped into leadership as if it had always been their role. Peace treaties were redrawn with human advisors. Trade routes reopened under human law. Exploration began again, but this time with humans guiding the ships. And though many feared their rule would be as cruel as those before, they were surprised. Humans protected the weak, helped rebuild ruined planets, and punished corruption with quiet efficiency. They brought a strange kind of justice, one that was firm but fair. But make no mistake, their kindness had limits. Anyone who crossed the line, who tried to bring back the old ways of control and fear, vanished without a trace. People said the humans had special operatives who moved in shadows, fixing problems before anyone else even knew they existed. No one could prove it, but no one dared challenge it either. This new era wasn't perfect, but it was different. The galaxy, once divided by species and power, slowly began to unite, not by force, but by the quiet leadership of the most underestimated race of all. And as the stars settled under the calm order of Earth's influence, one message echoed again and again in systems old and new. This is the beginning of the human era. Watch carefully. We don't need to shout to be heard.